you should not focus on interest rates and the market actually right now. I think what you need to focus on is what is your clients / customers, potential customers' goals. If they need to purchase a home, whether the interest rates are high right now or not, should not reflect their decision making.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest was born and raised here in Jacksonville. She's a real estate broker with over a dozen years in the industry. Her strengths are negotiating, buyer representation, and over-the-top customer service. She believes giving a full attention and staying in front of the ever-changing real estate market has enabled her to provide the knowledge and expertise in assisting her clients to buy or sell their home. She believes listening and a high level of communication is key to successful real estate transaction. Let's welcome the owner-broker of Anchor Realty Jaxx, Shanon Voce. Yes, Shanon, welcome.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Good to have you on. I'm really interested in, we talked a little bit about pre-show, and I know you're working with Angie, and so we're going to dig in deep because I think it's obviously helped you from a coaching standpoint and what's that done in your business. So we're definitely going to dabble into that a little bit. Before I get started, though, I want to my sponsor, who's made these great mugs here. You can see this, if you can see that in the camera there, with my logo, and then Remy graphics on the back there. These are made. She can make singles for you if you're doing a closing and you want to just say, hey, John and Sally, congratulations on your new home or whatever. These things, people don't throw these away. This is your gift here today. You can put in your gift bag there. Hope that color works for you.
That color's great. Thank you.
But I appreciate you. But yes, Remy Graphics, I'm going to give you guys the put up there, RemyGraphics.com. She does more than just the mugs, obviously, but check out her website there for the other articles that she does. And I'm sure if you called her, if there's something else that possibly could be done, they'll do that as well. All right. So thank you, Remy Graphics. I'm going to kick off the show, as I always do. You were born and raised here.
I was, or I am.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you went to Fletcher, right?
I did.
You went to Fletcher High School. What was young Shanon thinking about doing as a career at that time? What were your thoughts at 18, 19 years old?
Well, actually, so you hit it on the head. I was born and raised here. I went to Fletcher my entire high school life, and then I actually started working at 14 in retail. I worked at the local malls around here, and I was in management for about 20 years. And honestly, at that 18, 19-year-old me, that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I thought I was just going to climb that corporate ladder and maybe one day be my big dreams, vice president, CEO of a retail company.
Right.
But that changed.
Well, and the malls have kind of died too.
They definitely died. And when I started to have a family, I started focusing on different things, working weekends, nights, constantly, holidays, all of those things were starting to get taxing would be the best to describe it. And so I started to think about other things. Yeah.
I think next to working the restaurant industry, retail, stores are, I mean, you got to work on Saturday and Sundays.
Yep, all day, not just a couple hours. It's an all-day thing, but I did learn so much.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for the experience I've had because I think it really helped me to have an entrepreneur brain and mindset, and that's why I've been able to do this for the last 12 years.
I think if people really sat down and thought about people who really have spent some time there, because some people check out early. It's not for everybody. But when it comes to structure, that's where if they want you at 5 a.m. on Black Friday, you got to show up. They want the items displayed a certain way. You could take this to the grocery stores as well. The guys who stock those shelves, trust me, there's someone looking over their shoulder to make sure every one of those labels is turned out so you can face them.
That's right.
All those little things that's involved. But when you take that detail into your own business, then you realize why those big corporations have gotten to where they're at and why they're doing that. Because now you're doing it in your own business.
That is correct. And I think even more than the detail part of that is the customer service part, because you really realized that if you don't have the customers, you don't have anything, right? There's no reason to put those labels where they need to go if you don't have the customers. So
Right.
I think I learned so much about customer service that it's really helped me a lot, and it was just instilled in me since I was 14 years old. And I think that's why I pride myself so much on being able to offer that to my clients and customers now.
Now, looking at your LinkedIn, as I troll through everyone's social media, it looks like you eventually decided to go to college, right?
I
You
did.
You didn't go at 18, you went a little later.
So I did. I actually went at 18 and I got my associate's degree.
Okay.
You know, it's
FSCJ.
now, but back then it was FCCJ.
Okay.
So I did do that, and then I decided I was going to move to Orlando because retail took me there, and I moved there and was having a pretty good career so far. I was a district director for the company I worked for. And then, like I said, things started to change. I actually got recruited into a different field, still retail. And then I actually ended up working for a blood center. And believe it or not, it was, blood, but it was very similar to retail. We were providing blood to hospitals, but we had to get those from customers. We had to get the blood. And so while I was there...
So a little marketing involved,
all of it. And so while I was there, I made the decision to go back to college and get my bachelor's degree because I really saw a future growing, and it was important that I had a bachelor's degree.
If you were to take a couple of things, from your retail firm, I guess would we call it a blood bank? That's basically what it is. Your experiences there, and then what you're doing today in real estate. What are a couple of things that you learned there that you still carry on and
Oh gosh.
or have a foundation in what you're doing today?
So much. Again, not to keep beating this, but just the customer service piece, the building relationships piece, especially at the blood bank. It was very important that we had great relationships between the hospitals and us. We were providing life-saving equipment to these hospitals. And so it was very important that we had the relationships, that we were comfortable with each other. And I think that has really came into the real estate business because for me, it's about trust and building relationships with my clients and my customers and really letting them know I am here to help them with their needs and find them what they truly want.
I'm going to give you a really a really good interview question.
Okay.
Not a podcast interview question, almost like you're interviewing for a job. I want to, because we say a lot of, oftentimes in conversation, we say a lot of surface level, great customer service. And I don't think the average person is like, well, why, hey, you got blood. Hospitals need blood. You could be the biggest jerk in town. They're still got to buy your blood from you because you got blood and they need blood.
Right.
But
we had competition.
Right. Explain. Go a little deeper.
Yeah.
Like what? So what I want is like, what were some of the customer service things that the importance, like you said, those relationships. There's obviously always a point person at the hospital, right? I'm sure is responsible for creating these transactions. What explain, like, when you say a relationship there, give us a little more color on it.
So I worked for, at the time, all the names and stuff have changed. It's been a while now, but it was Florida's Blood Centers is the one that I worked to. But we had competitors. So these hospitals really could purchase the blood that they needed from any of these places.
Right.
So we created relationships, built relationships that they could know and rely on
you.
To support their needs at any given time. And there was also other businesses, other blood banks, if you will, trying to prove the same thing. So at the end of the day, it was really about the relationships that we were, developing with these hospitals and with the point persons and living up to what we promised, right? You need O negative blood, we'll have that for you. Because if we didn't, then they moved on.
If you were writing a short book on customer service, some of the things you just mentioned there, reliability, answering the phone, or at least responding in a reasonable period of time. Correct. And some of these things, like we mentioned them, but they've been mentioned for decades. hey, we want to, just answer the phone. I've been in the business almost 19 years, and that's been like everyone said, well, you can do, you'll be good if you just answer. You just have to answer the phone.
Communication.
Like, is that really the bottom line of this?
Communication, I believe, is what I'm really good at, and I think that's a very big piece of it. And not only answering your phone, but how does the person want to be communicated with? What works best for their lifestyle? And being able to adjust to that. I do think there's a lot of different viewpoints, and I don't think any of them are wrong. I just think it's who you are and how you adjust best. But for me, I just answer the phone between 9 and 5. I'll call you the next day. I'm not saying that isn't okay, though. I think that works for some people, and that's great. I just don't work that way.
Right.
I can't relax that evening knowing somebody's trying to get in touch with me or needs something from me. So yes, I am going to call you back at 7 o'clock if that's what works for you, 8 o'clock. I do kind of tailor my schedule around my customers' needs. And again, not all people do that. And I don't think that's wrong. Some people think I'm not right for doing it that way, but that's what's worked best for me and my clients.
I don't know any successful real estate agent who has not taken that call at 8 o'clock on whatever night and had a therapy session with their clients, or
Absolutely.
just updating the seller on, hey, these are the offers we've got, or hey, I'm waiting for this to come in, to have those conversations because people want to sleep at night.
That's how I feel too, and it helps me sleep at night. I don't like leaving it unfinished. If somebody needs something, I really do my best to respond to them and make them feel at ease and at peace to the best of my ability. And I think communication is just the key to that. I think that helps people so much be able to navigate their thoughts, their feelings, their expectations. And I also think setting expectations is a huge part of it. So I do think if you are that type of professional that says, okay, look, I'm only going to work 9 to 5, and that works for you, and you set that expectation with your client, I think that's okay. I just think that, my expectation is, I understand 9 to 5, you might have another job, so you can't talk to me till 7.
Right.
So I want to be there for them.
Yeah.
And, I lay that all out. Now, if there's a day off I might have planned or something like that, then again, I communicate that with them ahead of time. So if they do need to reach me and I don't get back to them as quickly as I usually do, they understand that.
Yeah.
To me, it's just about the two-way communication piece of that and not just leaving them hanging.
On the subject, an agent who may be kind of in this challenge of being open 24/7 versus, hey, they got kids or whatever, they got to have their time, and understanding this. When at that point in the relationship with that client, maybe let's say take someone you've never met before, you just start maybe showing them some homes, and we know people aren't making the decisions as quick as they were, say, 2 years ago.
Correct.
You might be working with them a little bit longer as houses stay on the market a little bit longer too. But there comes a point where you've now built up enough credibility with them to kind of be a little straight with them and say, hey, unless the house is on fire,
right,
we can take care of this tomorrow.
Yes, and I do think that once you establish that relationship and that trust, absolutely. And I think, again, it's just letting them know, hey, I'm always here for you, but tomorrow, my son is in a show. I'm not going to be available, or, my daughter has a gymnastics meet, whatever that might be. I think as long as you let them know and communicate with them ahead of time, I think that always typically works out okay.
Yeah. So you're with the blood bank. What starts to get your fancy for real estate?
Okay. So, like I stated, I was living in Orlando, and I had a son, and he was about 3 years old at the time. My husband and I got the opportunity to come back to Jacksonville, which I had really been aching to do. I had missed home a lot, and so
even though you were only 140 miles
I know,
away.
yeah, but it was a different feel. I wanted to come back home, and I wanted to be with, my community, people I knew, and all the things. I wanted my son at the time to be able to grow up and experience a lot of the things that I experienced. So my husband got an amazing opportunity to come back here, and so we had to put our house up for sale in Orlando. We put it up for sale, and I didn't have a a very good realtor. And I didn't know much. I didn't know any better. So I just kind of did everything. It's just who I am, I guess. So I kind of started digging in. I did the showings and she allowed that, which was, crazy to me, but okay. So I did the showings. I got the house ready. I got it staged. We ended up getting like 5 offers on it.
With no real coaching from the agent and no advice or
no.
anything?
I mean, maybe a little bit. I don't even remember her name, like till this day, or what if she walked in right now, I probably wouldn't even recognize her. But at the time too, I wasn't upset with her. I didn't know better. So I just was like, I'm going to just do this. I want to get our house sold. We want to get back to Jacksonville. And so, so I remember getting the offers. She sent them over, looking at them all, evaluating the pros and cons. And from there,
she literally sent you the actual offers over.
Yes. And so I was like, okay. And honestly,
do you remember how you chose her? What was it that
somebody recommended her?
Okay. Interesting.
Yes. And so I was like, okay. And because I didn't know any realtors. And again, at the time while I'm going through this, I didn't realize that this wasn't the process. But when I was doing it, I realized I loved it. Like I felt very excited. And excitement, honestly, I hadn't felt in a while when it came to work. And that's what started me on the real estate path.
So you come back over to Jacksonville.
Came over to Jacksonville, and I was still working in Orlando as a consultant. And so I was traveling back and forth. I had a 3-year-old, and then shortly after that, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. And I was still driving back and forth. Was taking the real estate exam because it was something that I decided I wanted to do. But it's a scary step to give up, something you've done and go all in. Well, when I was in Orlando, I was pregnant, and I ended up having, I can't even remember, something weird happened, but it caused me to pass out. And that just kind of spoke to me and said, you know what, it's time to move my life completely back to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And so that's what I decided to do, and I decided to go all in with real estate.
Right.
I was very scared.
So this is a common question I ask a lot on the show, because I think if there's new agents out there, and I'm sure you're asked all the time by friends, whatever, relatives or whatever, about real estate. Should I get into real estate? Is that initial brokerage? Because, here you're coming from a totally different industry, although sales, but now you're 1099 and no benefits, and it's you're out there. Luckily your husband has a good job, and
right.
the bills are going to be paid, at least from that side. But you're going all in. What decision making did you do to choose the first brokerage that you went to?
Okay, so the first brokerage that I went to was Watson Realty, and I had interviewed at it's Berkshire Hathaway now, but I can't remember. Maybe it was Coldwell Banker. I can't remember what it exactly was at the time. And then I actually walked into Watson, and I interviewed there, and I didn't know that that was going to be the place I chose. But what actually ended up happening is I met somebody there. I didn't know her, but she's born and raised, grew up here as well. And we ended up knowing a lot of the same people, and we just really hit it off. And I just wanted to know more and more from her,
right?
Because she seemed very excited about real estate, which she was, and so she was the one that kind of drew me towards.
So she had already been in real estate for whatever amount of years at that time.
Just actually, she was pretty new. She was only in it maybe a year or two at that point.
Okay.
But she was doing well.
Okay.
And she was on the luxury side of things, and she was just great to talk to, and we just hit it off. And honestly, that was really what drew me there.
Right. Watson obviously is designed. There's their method of their madness is the new agents. They offer the course, and obviously do a heavy recruitment. There's a lot of great agents in town. If they're not still with Watson, started at Watson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. What were some of the things that this person obviously was kind of giving you some advice on? What are some of the things? How was that initial first couple of weeks, first month, first year?
Okay. My experience at Watson was probably very different than most. I did not do any of the training they offered. I actually just hit the ground running with her. And I just asked her, can I follow you around?
Right.
You know, and can I watch what you do? Can I follow you around? And she said, absolutely. And so that's what I did. I started going on listing appointments with her. I started going when, you know, we had photographers when it was time for photos for a new listing. I started going with her. I would just watch her, you know, meet people and let her know that she's in real estate. And honestly,
how she was interacting with customers and non-customers.
Yes. And answering phones. We would be in the office together. And then it just started. She didn't love the administrative part of it. And so I said, let me take it on. And I was doing this with no pay, by the way. I just wanted to learn. And I learn well hands-on.
Right.
And I felt like I was getting more benefit doing that than going to sit in a class. So I just started like helping fill out contracts and all of this, and that it eventually grew into me being able to start my own business and having the confidence that I am a realtor and I can do this now.
Looking back at that, because I think, you know, that the handful of people, you know, of the 190 agents I've interviewed, I don't, you know, I wouldn't say handful, maybe we just didn't talk about it, but having that person to shadow, how important was that versus, I mean, it's great that you go to the classroom, but there comes a point where you have to leave the nest.
Agreed.
And the fact that you saw it to grasp onto this person really accelerated your learning curve.
So much. For me, it really did. I was very thankful that I got to meet her and that it all blossomed the way it did, because I think it would have took me a lot longer to get my career going in real estate if it wasn't for that meeting.
Right. Now, so if a girlfriend of yours is getting started today, and maybe she joins up with you. So someone joins up with you. You know, you got a small brokerage, so they are going to be hands on.
Absolutely.
There, but if they weren't, let's say they weren't even in the area. I mean, how important would you insist that they try to find somebody that they can shadow, because they may not know anyone in that office. You were fortunate to run into somebody and gain a relationship real quick or grow the relationship.
Right.
But if you're looking for a brokerage to match up to, part of it is like, is there someone there I can shadow or apprentice under?
And the funny thing is, I think I view brokers differently than maybe some brokers view brokers. I think that's what a broker should be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what, in my opinion, shocks me, that at some places brokers are not that person. I think it would be great, you know, as a broker, if somebody came in and wanted to work with Anchor Realty Jaxx and they were the right fit for Anchor Realty Jaxx, I would be that person to them. I would let them go on listing appointments with me. They could, you know, have open houses at any listing I had, or I would do it with them so they could see the first couple of times. I just think that's what you're paying a brokerage for.
Right.
Right. And I think that, in my opinion, sometimes that gets away, and brokers are more interested in recruiting than retaining and teaching. What is
your, because some of these brokers go, we're non-produced, we're not competing against you, which personally, I don't know, is the broker really got some sort of upper hand? I mean, I think you would agree that in today's real estate world, this isn't Century 21 back in the 1980s or Remax where everyone remembered the balloon. It's really the individual agent's own brand, because that's what they're telling you guys and us as loan officers, brand yourself.
Yes.
No one really is pushing any sort of name out there other than their own.
Correct.
So the non-producing broker, having interviewed some great people that were at the RE Bar Camp. I mean, I remember one of them came said, I don't know if it was in our interview or just other stuff I was watching them, other content they were putting out. If the broker isn't out there doing it, isn't out there doing video, for example, isn't out there, doing social media, and then they're trying to teach you or tell you to do it, but they're not doing it, it doesn't go very far.
I absolutely agree with that. And I had some brokers before I decided to open Anchor Realty Jaxx that I kind of felt that. They weren't able to direct you quite like I think somebody who's out there doing it could. And that was a little bit of the feeling I got, and that I wanted to say, I wanted to stay in the industry. I truly believe in my heart that there is enough business in this world, in this community, for everybody that wants to do it. So
Right.
I don't feel that anybody coming into this industry should worry about competition. I think if you focus those efforts on yourself and building relationships and doing the things that we know work, then I think the business is going to be there for you. Now, I do think the people that work harder are going to get more business, but I think that's in any job,
Right.
you know? And let's take you
Well-
example. You're a loan officer doing this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not all loan officers are doing that.
Right.
And, you know, that gives you a step up. So you can find your niche. But if your goal is to just want there to never be any other real estate agents so you can just get the business, I don't think that's a good goal for you to have.
Yeah. I think
So.
one of the things that this kind of leads us to, there comes a point where everyone hits their lid anyway, by themselves.
Right.
That unless you have some dream that you want to have this, huge brokerage with hundreds of agents, which takes a unique person to reach that level. It's a whole nother level of aptitude to manage, because now you need leaders and sub leaders and managers, all these people that are doing, because obviously like someone coming to you can work hand to hand with them. Someone coming to some of these large big name brokerages have hundreds of agents. They don't have time to work with that newbie. They got to
Right.
have someone else do it.
Correct.
Which I think should be like you're going back to what should a broker be doing? They should be a matchmaker, matching them up. Hey, this is my top agent in office. I want you to shadow him
Yes.
for the next 2 weeks, whatever,
Yes.
that type of deal. And obviously those people who are into, possibly, they want to grow their own team. Hey, you want to learn if you want to earn green? This person's going to shadow you for the next 2 weeks. Let's see if you want to actually
Yeah.
is this something you want to do? Do you want
Yes.
to pour into somebody like that? So go back to the lid part. At what point, because you talked to now, you have a full-time transaction coordinator
I
that
do.
works you.
Yes.
So at what point did you feel, was it a number of deals that you were doing, or just a point where you're like, you know what, I need to start pouring some of this stuff off onto someone else so I can continue that forward-facing money-making activities?
I got a transaction coordinator pretty much right off the bat, just because I felt like I wanted the extra support with paperwork and those types of things, so nothing got missed.
So finding a transaction coordinator that actually is more experienced than you were in handling.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I thought that was, and actually she was a little more experienced. She was a little newer in the business, but we've been together this whole time. We've been together over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And, we kind of grew up together, and she's now does multiple, agents and has, she's doing wonderful. But we know how each other works. I actually was just talking to her on the way here, and we've just worked together for a really long time now.
All right. So I think I was talking about this the other day, and it's kind of a subject I go through phases in the show, because I hear different things, and then I want to dig deeper and get everyone's kind of opinion on it.
Okay.
I hear a lot of people, they're at this lid level. They are pulling their hair out because they are starting to work a lot of extra hours, in front of the computer, doing some of the things that a transaction coordinator or assistant might do, that kind of marketing person might do. They often say, I've heard, I called so-and-so and, they've gone through 3 transaction coordinators already. They don't like them. And the only thing I can think of is, I can't believe that the transaction coordinator that they had was doing a bad job. It goes back to a word that I see in your bios and stuff, and you used earlier, communication. Would you agree, over the 10 years, you guys have figured out, how do you want the information coming to you? How do you want the information going to your customer? If you're starting with a transaction coordinator, to sit down and have these conversations, and maybe even have a third person who's really experienced, because I think that person starts to hand some of these activities off, doesn't really know yet how that's going to totally flow in the overall transaction.
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah.
So to sit down and have someone go, well, you don't want to do it that way because you need to kind of have that third person that's kind of overlooking this conversation is what I'm visualizing, or a really experienced transaction coordinator,
Right.
because the two of them really need to meet. Because I've heard somebody say, I'd like, first thing in the morning. I think it was Carrie Carpenter. She says she likes a book of text messages. She likes the if they start filling up the screen on my phone, I'm done.
Right.
But that's the way she likes it.
Yes.
So having that communication, that this is how I want to communicate and when I want you to send me that information in the course of your day. How important is it to like really sit down and drill these things down?
Well, I think it goes back to communication, yes, but again, expectations. We need to set the expectations. So if I was to sit down with a new transaction coordinator, we would talk about what are my expectations? What are your expectations? And that's where the communication starts, and then put it in writing. Always put it in writing.
So you have to go back and reference it.
Yeah. So, what are the expectations? So let's talk about them, and then let's write them down. I'm going to give you, if that's, what you want, the book of texts in the morning, or you don't want the book of text. So you want this by email, or you want this to go to your customer at this point in time. This is what I'm handling. Am I doing the repair request? Are you doing the repair request? And I think if the expectation is set, then you're setting yourself up for success on both ways. But if you just go into it blindly, then I think there's going to be a lot of frustration there.
Right, right. 100%. What are some of Shannon's expectation with the transaction coordinator? What are some of the things that you like that are unique to you?
Okay, so I don't know if it's necessarily unique to me, but, she knows I send her the executed contract. She knows she gets started right away. If she can't, for some reason, she'll send me a text. Hey, got your contract. Can you give me 2 hours to get started on it? Or do you mind if I get it started on later this afternoon? So that's kind of nice. That might be unique to me. I'm not sure. And I say, no problem. That's not a problem at all. Go ahead and get started. Or I'll say, you know what? We've got to get inspections scheduled like now. So is there any way, so we just kind of communicate back and forth about that. And then she typically follows up with a phone call. I like her to do a phone call and introduce herself via phone call to the customer, so they know they have somebody else there if they can't get me.
Right.
I like them to make that initial contact via phone. If they don't ever talk on the phone again, if there's no need, that's not a problem. But I like there to be a phone call just for the introduction piece.
Because you want to feel out a little bit about how does the customer want to communicate.
Correct.
Some of them want to communicate all through text message.
And that's fine too.
Some of them don't want to do text message. Some of them may even like the Zoom call. I don't know, who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's exactly like what we find out. And, most of the time I feel like 90% out of the time it is text message that people want, and we get on a group text. So I'm still seeing things that are going back and forth, or I can chime in if there's some knowledge that I have that maybe my TC doesn't have.
Right.
And so I think, I don't really think I do anything. She usually will help set inspections with them too, by having that conversation with them. What's your availability? Are you going to be there? Shannon always typically shows up to the inspections, and she gets that stuff set up. And then we, move on to our title company and what the processes are there and who's going to be communicating. And, and we go over some of the things, what to look for and what not to look for as far as emails that will be coming to them. And I think that we just go from there.
I can see that and I'll tell you why after show I have these questions come to my head.
Okay.
I've seen this.
Okay.
The sense of, you want to have, everyone needs to have a sense of urgency. We want we don't want our customers sitting for days without some sort of communication, unless we say, hey, nothing's going to happen because we're not closing for 60 days.
Right.
And,
we've
done all this and, so I'll call you next week or whatever.
Right.
But when that contract is signed and it comes over, the game starts. Well, actually, that was the one question. Is that when your transaction coordinator gets involved? You wait for you handling everything up to the fully executed contract? Is
Correct.
that when then now game's going,
right?
And the transaction coordinator has it. Setting up the services. Again, unless there's some sort of special circumstance, like, hey, we need a quick close on this one or whatever, they only want to give us this non-standard inspection window or whatever that might be, or hey, we really need the inspection to make a final decision if we're going to buy this house because it looks like there might be some real issues.
Right.
Having that open conversation, but for the agent, that's not using a transaction coordinator right now, handing that off to let them, set up, obviously contact the lender if you're on the buyer side.
Always.
Hey, we've got an executed contract, so the lender could start doing what they're supposed to be doing. Obviously, I love it when agents circle in the title company on an email with, hey, here's our executed contract. Sally at title company is handling it. Sally's on the email. So those types of things.
Yep.
But to hand off that. I think a lot of agents have a reluctance that are not getting these transaction coordinators because they are afraid that the transaction coordinator does not have, the only thing I can think of, does not have the sense of urgency that they feel they have. And I think some of them may be even too urgent.
Right. And I agree with that. I think some people have a hard time letting things go. And that's probably, their personality in some sense. But I think if you really give it a try and understand what you have to gain by being able to focus your efforts on other things that help your customer service be better, I think having a TC offers better customer service, because I think once you get a very experienced TC, they are so knowledgeable in things because they do it so much that it's going to really benefit you and your customer. And just little things like, I'm actually negotiating a deal right now with an assumed mortgage. And I, just because it's become more of a thing now, obviously with the interest rates, it's a new one for me. But she's done it before. You know what I mean? So it's great to have her expertise to help kind of guide through this process. So I just think that it's helpful in so many ways if you get the right person. And I think there's several great TCs out there in this community.
Well, I think we've already stated, you got to have the expectation conversation. You can't be, okay, you're a transaction coordinator. Okay, I'll send you the contract when I get one. No.
You can't.
You guys set expectations with your go-to lenders that you expect. Sometimes you don't often have that conversation, but that's a conversation I think that should be had with your lender just as much as your transaction coordinator, to sit down and say, hey, I expect you to, because, in our world, in the lending world, we don't, real estate agents are not exactly the most loyal to their lenders. And one of the reasons probably is because there was no expectation set up front.
Right.
And then someone walks away disappointed. Yeah.
And I think honestly, just setting the expectations up front will help 90% of any issues that come up.
Right. Bottom line is, though, in your eyes, someone asked, just point blank, how has a transaction coordinator changed your business? I mean, you did have them from the very beginning, so you don't really could say, well, I went years without one.
Right.
But you knew enough right away. There's someone better at that part than me.
Yeah. I mean, my personality is one that I love talking. I love people. I love being around people. I love showing homes. I love going to the inspections, believe it or not. I love being out doing things. I'm not one that likes to sit at a desk and be on a computer all day. And it was worth it to me at the beginning just to have somebody do that piece of it for me so I could be out doing the things that I was better at.
Right.
And so for me, I think it just helps keep everything going. I know what I wanted to say before. One of the things that she does as well, and maybe all TCs do this, but she sends the timelines out as well. So we have all agreed on dates when things are supposed to be done. That's put in writing. Again, the expectation is there. Everybody's agreed on it. So we don't ever have an issue or a debate on whether something was due.
I've seen some do that. It is awesome to send that out. All the agents, hey, this is our expectation, because that gives everybody an opportunity to look down and go, oh, no, we need to move that up, or
and we even copy the lender on it when we do it as well, because we want to say, hey, lender, you're on the same page, right? Because we're all working off the same contract, and we want to make sure that we're all reading it the same way and understanding it the same way. And it does give anybody in the transaction the ability to say, wait,
something's not right.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Let's jump into let's jump into the coaching, because I think this is
Okay.
something important. I haven't talked about it recently on the show. At what point, what was going on? How long you've been? Set the stage for us a little bit of where you were at with your business and where you felt that assuming a coach would help you move the needle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so in all transparency, when I opened my own brokerage, I love it, but I got a little lonely, if I'm being honest. I got a little lonely, again, because I am a people person and I do enjoy being around people. But luckily I had a lot of good friends and colleagues in the business that, I would talk to and bounce stuff off to, or bounce ideas off of. And one of my colleagues I was talking to one day, and I told her, I'm a little lonely, I love this. I don't want to do anything different. Maybe I need to grow the team, these types of things. And she said, you know what I think you need? A real estate coach. She goes, I have one, Angie Bell. And I said, oh, tell me more. And she told me about it and basically sold it to me. And my first conversation with Angie, I knew that that was the right fit. And I think that was like 4 years ago now.
So you've been with Angie for 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is an interesting thing, because you go off on your own. You don't have an office to walk into at the water cooler, basically,
Right.
talk shop, or in the in-house trainings or so forth. You are on your own little island there.
Yes.
So I want to take a step back, because you made me think of a question I wanted to ask you was, at what point, because you went to another large brokerage.
I did. I went to Keller Williams.
Yep. And they have some successful trainings and things going on there, and there's some very successful people in town that's where they hang their license at. At what point you say, I need to do this on my own?
Okay, so I went to Keller Williams, and I very much liked Keller Williams. I do feel like they are very agent driven. They give you the platform to, like you were saying earlier, to really, brand yourself and introduce, yourself and not just Keller Williams. So I really liked that a lot about them. Their trainings were great. What I found for me, though, is they were very team focused, and I wasn't interested at that time being that type of team. So I did feel like, in my opinion, they seemed very focused on that. And then a lot of their training that they offered was just not ever at good time. It was a lot of happy hours, a lot of mixers. I'm a mom. I just wasn't interested in, being out at dinner time, unless I was, of course, helping a client. But I just felt like a lot of their trainings were just not at times that were working for me. And so I'll be honest, I just felt like I was paying this brokerage a lot of money, and although they had a lot of stuff that they offered, I just wasn't able to take advantage of it for what my lifestyle was.
Right.
So being that I'd been in management for so many years prior to this, it just seemed like it made sense for me to be a broker.
Early on, you mentioned that you really didn't take the training at Watson. You mentored up. Where you brought up you're on an island. You got your own small brokerage here. Where do you go?
Well, that's kind of how I was feeling. It was like I said, for lack of a better word, lonely was the best word I can really use to describe it. I was doing okay. I was doing well. I had my customers, but I would have ideas or something that I kind of really wanted to talk with people about, even beyond doing that transaction, more about branding or marketing, or, I do Deck the Chairs every year, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's Deck the Chairs.
Is that Christmas time?
Yes, at Christmas time. Should I be doing that? Just little things like that was, I just was looking for somebody to really talk with. And, I maybe hold me accountable as well. I'm pretty good at holding myself accountable, but it's nice to have somebody double checking, just like a transaction coordinator, kind of the same concept. So I decided, I really want to dig in and make sure this is a lasting brokerage. And I really want somebody to help me expand my marketing a little bit, hold me accountable for some of those things. And so I decided it was time to get a real estate coach.
Okay. I just want to tap in because we're going to dig into Angie here in a moment. How important, being, again, your small brokerage, but collaborating and getting out, because you, like I said, a lot of agents have families. There are this regular group, I could say, because that do attend these socials that are at these happy hour times, and it's a lot of the same people. It's a pretty decent sized group, so you may not all see them all at one time, but there is another generation like yourself who don't have time. It's not necessarily their thing at 4 or 5 o'clock to do that. They're going home and take care of the business. What do you do to try to, because I would assume you find it important that you need to get to know some of the other agents out there, whether they're with Keller Williams or Watson or any other brokerage in town. It's important to know these people because they might be on other sides of deals.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that I typically feel like I do a great job when I am doing deals with them to, get to know these agents. I mean, I was just on the phone with one last night for about an hour, 9 to 10 o'clock. We're negotiating a deal. I know her whole life story now. I think that's one way, but getting out to open houses, inviting people to my open houses, other brokers, I'll give them a call. I still maintain a good relationship with the ones that I did meet too at Watson and Keller, although a lot of them have come and gone to different places. But I feel like I do a good job at reaching out. If I do have a question on something, or just want somebody I know that might be really good at, in an area, say selling in a farmed area, I'll call them. And, so I keep in touch in different ways. I wouldn't say there's one thing that I do, because it probably depends on how I met them or what knowledge they may have that we can, trade off. But I'm just a social person, so I like to contact people if I have a reason.
All right. Let's dig in and do an infomercial for Angie Bell.
Okay.
All right.
You're welcome, Angie.
Let's see, how long have I known Angie now? Probably it's 2016 or 17, I think, is when I first met Angie. And we spent some time. We both signed up for a John Maxwell event in 2019. So we got to spend 2 or 3 days, sitting with each other through these classes or, instruction or whatever. She's been doing it a while. I'm sure there's probably other coaches in town, but none that I continue to hear success stories from Angie. Tell us about you. We talked about your reason for wanting a coach. You felt, and I mean, was your overall production in mind? Besides just, having someone to, talk about, well, I'll use the word shop, talk real estate with, talk about strategy, whatever. But were you like, hey, I need to move my production up. I need another 25% or whatever. Was that actually on your part of your?
I would absolutely say I felt I could be doing better. Yeah. And I was kind of stuck at what more could I be doing. And I knew it was something, and that's what I really felt like I needed a coach to help me figure out what that was. Right. And yes.
And how to put these things in place. Because I think a lot of agents undersell themselves. Again, they reach that lid and it's like, well, this is all I can do. No, you actually, if you could do a lot more, probably with a lot less effort, if you actually, did have the transaction coordinator's assistant and that sort of thing. Spent a little money over here, you could double your production, maybe increase your overall thing 150%, doing 200% more, but you got to pay a little bit to get these players in here.
And I think it's scary to some, people, and me included, when you commit to something like that, being, okay, I'm going to pay this person. But once you do it, you see how worth it is. And, I'll even mention my husband loves Angie, and they've never met. You know what I mean?
Well, she does do marriage counseling, too.
She probably does. I believe that. But, yeah, he loves her. He thinks that she was one of the best things
decision
I could have ever. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's a great endorsement. All right. So your first couple meetings with Angie, what is Angie, if someone's saying, what's it like to be coached by Angie, or what was your experience? How did she help you? Tell us, give us the first start, because a lot of times in those first few meetings, she's got to get to know you, right?
Right.
How did she approach that? How did she break that down?
She asks a lot of the personal questions first, which is great. What's important to you? what does business look like for you? One thing that I liked about her is a lot of her focus was not only about money, not about how much money you could make. It was about life balance. And that was very important to me, being a mom. And I wanted to make sure that I could do, all the things that, moms that are also professionals want to do. You want to do amazing in your career, but you also want to be there for your family too. Yeah. And so we talked a lot about what that looked like, what that would look like, what were those goals, what would I need to do to achieve that? And then she really broke down with me, making sure that we were running the business as a business. It wasn't just a, transaction by transaction. And I think that was very helpful. She helps you get set up and really be able to look at your business plan, your marketing plan. Where are your dollars going? Are they going in the appropriate places for you to be most successful in what you're trying to achieve? And I think looking at what your values are, that was very helpful too, because we did look and see where the values were. And again, it's not just about, one thing that I didn't say before that's always been very important to me is, believe it or not, and I know a lot of real estate agents probably are going to say, are you crazy? But I've said no to business before. And why have I done that? But I've helped them find the right place.
If you haven't fired a customer, you haven't been in business long enough.
I want to make sure that it's manageable, that I can still say I pride myself on being able to give this customer service. If I have 20 deals going on right now, I would not be able to provide the right customer service.
Right.
And if I had that consistently, then I would build a team to support that. But sometimes, as you know, it comes in, there's things that come in phases where all of a sudden you'll get a ton. And if I feel like I can't provide the right amount of customer service to all of it, then I say no to some of it at times.
Yeah, because it could cost you everything.
Correct.
In certain situations where all of a sudden you just really ticked off 10 people who hopefully might be referral.
Correct. I would rather do a really good job
on
for these
6
right.
than
And so talking through all of those things and my goals and my values and what I was trying to obtain doing this business, I think Angie helped me get my processes, appropriate to maintaining those goals. I was doing an okay job, but I wasn't looking at it in that way. We realized that some things I was paying for, I shouldn't be paying for. And that money would be better allocated to go to this to help me achieve those goals. And I think she was so instrumental in helping me do all of that.
It sounds like there was some heart-to-heart conversations here.
We still have heart-to-heart conversations. I will tell you, we are at a point in our coaching relationship that, yes, we talk a lot about the business, but we have lots of conversations too that sometimes if I'm feeling held back, why do I feel like I'm being held back? Or when there's times that I might feel a little insecure about something, she helps find out why. Right. The biggest thing that she taught me, and if she's listening to this or listens to this, she'll laugh, but I've always been a little bit bad about writing the story. And if I am going to write the story, why not write it in a good way? And she's really helped me see that. And I play that through my head a lot. And so what I mean is if there's an outcome, I just assume sometimes what the outcome is and instead of just letting it play out. But her advice to me was, but if you're going to do it, why not assume that it's the best outcome it could possibly be as opposed to worrying about it?
Right.
And I think that was, there's just been little things like that. That one's the first thing that comes to mind. But those are things that we talk through that kind of help you stay focused on the positive, and moving forward and keeping your business moving in a really good direction.
Well, I mean, you tipped on one of those things, and all humans have these things, whether it's procrastination or, like you said, you just assume the worst is going to happen because in your mind you want to appease yourself. Are you okay with failing.
Yes.
Although, every good person says you got to fail forward. If you haven't failed, you haven't been doing it long enough or failed at something. Is there any other thing that she talked, I used to use procrastination there. Were there any other things that as she looked at your current business and was like, why are you doing that?
One of the things I didn't really realize that my business was totally based on, so I don't pay for leads. I don't buy, all of my business is organic and referral based. Right. And I don't know that I realized how, I never looked at it as building relationships before. It was all about the relationships that I had or people that I had relationships with had with other people. And I think once she kind of really brought that to my attention and we were able to continue to focus on that, because I like that. That's what I like to do.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, so you have friend John, you have a relationship, known each other for years or whatever. John gives you a referral.
Correct.
You were not going and trying to build the relationship with the referral like you had with John?
No, meaning I just didn't realize, to be honest with you, that relationship with John was what was getting me business. I just liked John, right? Like he was just my friend, and it was like, I was excited, but I didn't.
How to nurture that.
Right. I didn't look at it as like, if I... John thinks I'm really good at this. I sold him a house, and now, and if I nurture this, that's going to help me get more business.
Right.
It didn't dawn on me. I was just doing it. And, it didn't dawn on me until I got Angie that I could be doing that better.
I think, that's, of all the agents I've talked to, some get it, some so get it. The light bulb went on for you, but I don't think people, that what you realized right there is the difference. I think, are you making the Jaxx real producers or not? And I think and the loan officers have the same problem, is how do you nurture that person in front of you? You're spending a lot of time, a lot of the loan officers we don't even see, unless we show up at closing, right? We never actually
meet them.
But you're showing houses to, you're that person who's listing, you're coaching them how to stage the home. You're going through the negotiations, so you're going back and forth. So let's do this. You're having hours and hours of conversation, which I think today, just a sidestep with that NAR settlement, I think every agent should have a journal, which there's a nice journal in your bag right there, and journal every transaction you have. Like what did you talk about today? Who did you call and how much time you spent and what did you talk about? And I don't think people realize how much time you actually do spend with these people.
Right. And I agree. And that was my point. Like I was doing the motions and building the relationships, but I just didn't realize that that's what I was doing to grow my business. I didn't realize that's should be part of your marketing plan, right.
which goes back to the transaction coordinator. Should I get a transaction coordinator now? Well, if you spend a little bit on the transactions coordinator so that you can spend more quality time, you're not thinking, like we're having a conversation, we're eye to eye right here, we're in depth, our phones are off. We're not thinking about, did that inspection get scheduled or whatever. We're having a conversation. That's the conversation you need to be having with your clients. So if that transaction coordinator can clear your mind so you can have the more in-depth conversation with your customers, or go out and have a coffee with them or a glass of wine, because they all have stories.
Right, absolutely.
And I'm sure you've had many clients pour into you and tell you their life story.
Oh, yes.
And that's when relationship starts. They obviously trust you to some point to tell you things outside of the transaction about their life.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for me, I like doing referral based clients because, well, one, safety. Like that's really where it started for me, is I didn't want to be opening houses for people I didn't know.
Right.
But more so is I keep, I've said it a couple of times, I enjoy people. I enjoy hearing people's stories. I enjoy, just seeing people's different personalities and what they're like and wanting. And I get very excited when we get to achieve their goal of either selling their home, buying a home. I love that piece of it too. I really do, because it means they're moving on to their next chapter that they've been excited about. and that makes me excited.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy that part of it very much so.
All right. So with Angie, you probably met more frequently at first. Talked however you guys
once a week.
You were doing once a week initially.
Still do
once a week.
We still do once a week. Yep, we have our time. We talk every week and for an hour. And we just go through all of the things that we're doing, what's working, what's not working. Again, what could I be doing better? What are my successes? And we really look at those type of things. And she holds me accountable for some of the administration things that are on me that, like I was very honest, I don't love to sit at but when I know I got to report back to her next week that I, inputted 35 whatevers in the spreadsheet,
right.
I do it. I get it done,
right.
So because I don't want to tell her I didn't do it.
For someone who's out there, I know Angie, when she got in the business, she got a coach right away because she came from corporate America where she had a coach. So she knew she got into real estate. First thing she did was hire a coach, which, helped her learning curve and move much quicker along. Someone out there thinking about, obviously there's an investment involved. There's one-on-one coaching, which what you're doing with Angie, and there's some group coaching. What do you the one-on-one? Obviously you see benefit in it. You've received benefit from it. You feel you've moved your game, and obviously for your husband to love her, never met her, obviously he sees you happier, I guess, is probably one of his biggest reasons.
It is. But I will go back to say, I do think I'm grateful for Angie, and I'll probably always have Angie. But I also think if you have the right broker, you could get some of that coaching from a broker if you had an actual broker that wasn't too consumed with hundreds of agents.
Right. No, I can agree with it. There's definitely, I can think of some brokers off the top of my head right now that are very involved. They are constantly trying to stay out in front of their agents, so they're consistently adding value. And one of the value would be coaching or mentoring.
That's just, and that's how I see as my team grows. That's the kind of broker I see myself being. I would be able to give them coaching based on what I get from Angie.
Yeah.
I would be able to, give them that. And I think an agent should get that.
Did we leave any other aha moments with Angie? That something that you came across that in your business that she reflected on, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing that. Or I need to be doing something slightly different.
The biggest thing I gotta say is just nurturing your relationships, and you know more people than you think.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that was an aha moment when she said, I want you to write down everybody you know, and you're like, okay, well, that's not going to take long. Oh yeah, I know this person. Oh yeah, I know that person. I think that was kind of an aha moment. It's just really it's stuff but when it's put in front of you,
yes,
it's like, oh, the picture is completed for you.
It's not rocket science. It's someone coming in from the side and saying, yeah, you need to adjust the shot a little bit. You're leaning to the left, you're leaning to the right, whatever it is. Your feet are not, correct, or just giving an athletic analogy there. But that's why they have coaches. I mean, and you can go back to the greatest that have out there. It was great to Tom Brady. He made a lot of money, but he also had 3 or 4 coaches. He had a nutrition. He had he had his own coaches at practice, let alone the quarterback coach for the team there and the head coach. He also had his own people looking at what he was doing, how he could perform, how he can move better, how he can do his game. And I think, having that coach, and especially someone like Angie, I've heard so many great stories from everyone that's worked with her. And obviously the fact that you've been with her for 4 years, you didn't feel that you outgrew her, or she took you to a level like, oh, hey, I'm not really moving anymore. Let me go do this on my own and find another coach.
She pushes me in a good way, without over pushing too, because sometimes from what I've heard, like with other coaching, it's all about the numbers, and it's all about doing more. And again, I can't say enough about what I like that she looks at you as an individual and finds out what's important to you. Because some people might come into this thinking they want to sell 300 homes in a year, but they might be miserable doing that if they really look at their core values and what they're trying to achieve. You know, and she's able to kind of assess that. She might say to you, okay, you want to sell, so how much time are you wanting to put into this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and she helps you really look at that balance to make sure that you're not frustrated with yourself, right? You're setting yourself up to achieve what is obtainable for what your life goals are. And that's what was really important to me, because I had never thought about it in that way.
Well, Angie she's like that great broker we were talking about that stays out in front of what's going on. So she's keeping herself abreast of what's going on in the industry. Well, you know, you know, she interacts with great people. And I think it's a testament that you have to, where sometimes these group coachings and so forth, it is all about numbers, their numbers.
Right.
You know, okay, well, so you're only spending $50 a week. Okay, I need to have 20 people in that classroom. You know, that's how they're thinking.
Right.
And I think the testament is that she's grown with you to a point where you've had her for 4 years now, and she's constantly still moving the needle for you.
And I've always, you know, my goals are, you know, I have different types of goals, but I've always progressed. You know what I mean? In the 4 years that I've been with her.
Well, the market's changed.
Right. So
life changes.
Right. So I've always obtained my goals that we've set for the following year.
Right.
So
maybe she said they weren't high enough.
Well, yeah, she would say that. That's why we set them higher. But yes.
So anyone listening right now, if you are looking for a great coach, you can look up Angie Bell or give Shanon a call.
Absolutely.
And if there's something I didn't ask her here today that you want to know personally, how a coach changed your business, move the needle for you. And like you said, you know, I think the testament is the fact that your husband's like, Angie's the great, because obviously he's seen a difference in you. You probably are bringing more money in too, that makes everything happy, but you're happier. And
well, because he was that person, right? He was that person that right. And then I didn't like the advice he gave.
You guys never do.
And so it was like, I think he was like, then why are you asking me? And I was like, because I have nobody else to ask.
I saw this great meme or reel on social media, and the wife was asking, it was actually about her nails. And he has do you want the husband answer or do you want the real answer?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, give me the husband answer. You know, we all want to fix things.
So, and that's what, and that's exactly. So it really, he knew I was struggling a little bit with wanting to like bounce ideas off, and you know, and she just was great for that, and still is.
100%. Speak of ideas.
Okay.
Give me 2 or 3 things right now that you know, based on the market conditions right now, high interest rates, you know, I think people to me are stressed out because they're hearing people speak out of both sides of their mouth when they watch any financial news, the news in general. You know, you're hearing, you know, like that you just contradicted yourself in a matter of just sentences, you know, stuff coming out for it. So it's confusing people, which generally then they, you know, it's harder for them to make decisions, which
I agree.
We're in a decision helping. What are 3 things you think agents should be doing right now at any level, but basically in their daily, weekly routines? What 3 things they should be doing right now?
I think you should be talking to your database, talking to your sphere of influence. I think that you should not focus on interest rates and the market actually right now. I think what you need to focus on is what is your clients/customers, potential customers' goals. If they need to purchase a home, whether the interest rates are high right now or not, should not reflect their decision making, because here's what I tell everybody. Interest rates might be high right now, but we're seeing prices drop. As soon as interest rates drop, you're going to see prices rise, right? So sometimes, you know, you see a crash like we saw in 2006, but ultimately that's typically how it works. So you're going to pay for it one way or the other. They're going to pay for it in the price of the house, or you're going to pay for it in the interest rate. The nice thing that I can say about the interest rate is you can change that eventually, right? Like when it drops back down, you can refinance and do different things. So one could sell that it is better time to buy when prices are a little bit lower and interest rates are a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, it all works out. I really really believe that. And if somebody needs to sell a home or buy a home, as long as we're transparent, honest, looking at market value and looking at what is really happening, those transactions can absolutely keep happening. People need a place to live. It is still, in my opinion, for the most part, unless you're, in a place for a short period of time, better to invest in real estate than to pay off somebody else's mortgage. That's always going to be an advice I would give any younger person to start to build wealth, is to invest in real estate. And even if it's not something you see immediately, you will see it over time.
Yeah.
And I think, just keep focusing on the positive would be the third thing. And don't let fear or the noise, distract you from doing what you're supposed to do, right? And that's getting back to the basics, talking to your database, educating them on what's happening, and the way you choose to explain that to them can be a positive or negative, right? And I just choose to stay positive throughout. I mean, it's been 12 years that I've been doing this, and I wasn't quite in the crash of it. I sold a house in the crash though. So lost money there, but I've gained a lot more money through my real estate transactions than I've ever lost.
How do you mentioned, reaching out to your sphere, your circle of influence, staying top of mind is the term I like to use. How does Shannon do that?
So I do my weekly phone calls, I do my letter groups, and I really try to do, if not phone, text does seem to work better. I think, as Angie doesn't love that to hear that, but you get a better response. And also, I think, so I do monthly newsletters. I do lots of social media. My social media is done about my business, but it's also personal, and I'm very happy to have my personal page, all my clients be on that, because I really, when you work with me, Shanon Voce, you work, I'm the same person sitting in front of you that I am when I'm on a boat on the weekends, or, so I don't try to be a different person than I am at home. So I'm happy to have people on my, my personal page. In fact, that's where I do more of I'm better at that than my business page. But social media, and then, like I said, I do mailers. I do monthly newsletters. I do quarterly emails, and,
Well, we were talking earlier, you said with the coaching that Angie brought to light that more people than you think you do.
Right, yeah.
Do you put those people on your, even though they haven't been a customer?
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
they might be a referral.
Well,
might be a customer later on when they're ready to buy or sell, because they're not right now, but they might be eventually. But,
I do.
Because would you agree, because if you don't reach out if you don't add those people who are, in your circle that you've got their email, whatever, so you could be sending them that newsletter, that all of a sudden when that person does 3 years from now wants to buy or sell a home, if you're not staying in front of them, somebody else probably is.
Absolutely. And, and the thing is, I go back to, I love helping people I know. You know what I mean? It's fun. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to remind that person that, hey, when you need a realtor, it's me.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that.
Well, it's something I've heard numerous times, and there was like, if someone is doing a real estate transaction, wouldn't you want them to be doing it with the best person? And if you don't think you're the best person at that, why are you doing it? Or you could give them the best service provided. Why are you doing what you're doing, right? So
it is a mindset, right? I think people feel like they are bothering somebody, or, oh my gosh. And, you might have those one or two, that opt out, or, and that's okay. That just wasn't for that person. But that doesn't mean that the other 10 people that you sent it to, aren't thankful for it and don't like it. So they
may delete you 100 times,
right?
But all of a sudden, the 101st time, it's like, hey, I need to do a real estate transaction. Now I'm going to open the newsletter.
Right.
I always go back to, I can't remember, it was one of the Ryan Serhant's original 2 books. I think it was Selling Like Serhant. I think it was in the original one. And he talks about sending a postcard to a guy for, I forget how many years. He did it, 3 or 4 years or whatever it was. He sent a postcard to this guy, like, hey, because he looked at a place with him, but he didn't buy. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, guy calls and he ends up buying a $17 million
wow.
place.
Yeah.
So when he equated the commission to the number of postcards he sent out, and realized, like, I mean, obviously, the commission is $17 million. Yeah, you have to realize everyone's not ready to move at that point, and they may not read your newsletter every time because they're not
busy.
interested.
I don't read, people's that I love's newsletter every time, and I love them.
But you don't unsubscribe. You just delete it or whatever. You just move on. You just don't feel like taking the time to read it right now. But when you are, it's because you're ready to actually do something.
Yeah, and one of the things, and sometimes I struggle with self-doubt, with things like this, but then I remind myself, you're going to put stuff out there and not everybody's going to like it, but that's okay. You just need one person to care about it, right? Like you just need one person to walk in an open house. So if you get so focused on write the story, what everybody's thinking, do you know what I mean? Then you can really, pull yourself down. So I've really changed my mindset, even on social media. I just got the 5-star professional award, and my first thought when I was about to post it was like, oh gosh, are people going to be like, oh, and then I thought, that's silly. Why not? You know what I mean? I'm excited. Why can't I share that with people? And if there is somebody out there that doesn't like it, they'll just scroll past it or, but there was a lot of people that did like it, And so I think you just have to stay the positive, and if you're going to write the story, write it in a good way.
I like
and
that.
not get so bogged down
what
with
other people
what
think.
Other people think, right? You just do you. And a quick story, during COVID, especially that first 4 weeks or whatever, we didn't go anywhere. One thing I loved about Angie, and she decided to do a Zoom call every morning. And she was basically titling this, "We're going to run to this. We're not going to run away from this." And I would get on, and if it wasn't for her, I felt like she kept me sane through that. And so I then started with my coaching with her doing videos, and I was not very comfortable doing them, if I'm being honest. But I didn't know how else. I couldn't go out and talk to people, and I needed to talk to people, right? Because I'm a social person. And so I was doing videos and uploading them once a week just on different topics, because people wanted to know what was going on with real estate right at that moment. Like, how is this? And so I was doing different topics and posting them weekly. And, I think into my 4th week, I got a friend of mine from junior high contacted me and said, "Hey, I've been watching your videos. I need to buy a house. I think we're in a position to do this, blah, blah, blah." And anyway, ended up selling him a house. And I almost didn't post them because I thought people are going to be like, oh my gosh, here she is rambling. What is she saying? But there are some people that are listening. Some people probably didn't. Some people may have thought that. I don't know. But he, it spoke to him, and it was worth every bit of me doing it, because we got him and his beautiful wife a great house, and it was fun. And it was my friend from junior high who I hadn't seen in 20 years.
That is an awesome story.
Yeah.
And I think anyone in whatever walk of life, any business they're involved in, the things that we do every day, which I think, going to the NAR settlement, I think for a long, what happened is agents got complacent, NAR got complacent, and all those things that are below the waterline, that people don't see you guys doing, or even loan officers, they don't see a lot of things that we're doing on the backside, because we don't want to talk about how we're trying to figure out how to get your loan approved because you have all these boo-boos.
Right.
But all those things below the waterline, that if you're regularly doing videos and talking about it, even it's stuff that you're like, man, everyone should know this, but no, everyone doesn't know this.
No,
this is what
hard.
You do, is why you feel that way. And
it's hard putting yourself out there for a lot of people, and I think, like I said, sometimes I struggle with that, if I'm being honest with you. I get the, energy, and I can do this, and then something might happen that puts a little bit of self-doubt in my mind. And, you just have to change that. And Angie's very good at helping with that as well. But you kind of have to change that and say, you know what? So what, you got that one comment, or you know what I mean, this person didn't seem like they liked it, but look at the people that did. And you just have to just keep pushing forward and doing what feels right to you, to you. And
Yeah.
doing those videos at that time really felt right and helped me get through.
Well,
all of
not
that.
everyone needs to be a cheerleader.
Right.
If they're watching your videos, they're watching them.
Right.
Whether they liked them or not, they're still watching them. And I think Trump is a perfect person. There's a lot of people, but they still watch. Howard Stern, more people that didn't like what he was saying, but still kept listening
And knew who he was.
Yeah, exactly. And when it came down to even that person who's kind of in the gray area, they're not like but they're still watching your video. When it's time to do a real estate transaction, who do they think of? Or their friend comes to the barbecue and says, I'm looking to buy a home. Oh, Shanon, because they're still watching your videos. For some reason, they may not be putting a comment, or maybe something you said. Of course, there's people, we all have bad days.
Right.
We have something's going on in our life, and sometimes we say stuff just to vent off something that's really happening over here that's not related. Yeah.
So you just have to remember all of that and just, and just keep putting yourself out there. But I think you can't not do anything. I think that if you're not doing anything, then and you're way too scared to do it, then real estate might not be for you, or anything that has to do with that type of business. But you have to just kind of overcome that and change your mindset and know that, to your point, if you know you have such a service to help somebody, why would you not want to tell that to everybody?
Right.
Anybody that'll listen. Look, I can help you,
Well,
and I'm the right person.
We know, if we even surveyed real estate agents, how many are really good, real estate agents. There's only a small percentage that actually have license that would be considered high quality real estate agents. So there's, like you said, there's plenty of transactions going on, and many people think the NAR settlement's going to weed out some of these people that aren't doing business correctly. Why would you not want them doing business with you? Because you're one of the few, you're one of this elite group of a few good real estate agents that are really giving high quality service that everyone should be going after and looking for.
Right, and that's why I think the realtors with this NAR settlement that aren't scared of the buyer agreement are going to do fine. Like, I mean, I don't know that I ever had somebody sign them all the time, but I've never been nervous ever about working with a buyer that didn't see my value.
Right. So, well, that's the confidence that you have in yourself, because I think it really, what that all comes down to is having the confidence, saying, I'm a badass and I'm going to give you great. I know the service I'm going to give you. Hopefully you're an easy customer, because I've dealt with a lot of, you've been in the business long enough. Shanon, anything you'd like to add? We conclude here?
Oh, just that, it was great being here. This was a lot of fun. It was my first podcast, but I really enjoyed it. And if anybody ever has any questions out there listening, please feel free to call me, Shanon Voce, Anchor Realty Jaxx, anytime you want. I'd love to hear from you or help anybody I can.
Well, all your contact information will be in the show notes as well. If you're listening on the podcast world, please leave a review. I don't ask enough for that, but if you could, those listening, leave a 5-star review and some comments, I'd appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.